Welcome to Breathe, a weekly audio podcast presented by Breath of Life. And now, here's the host, Pastor Debleaire Snell, and co-host David Person.
Welcome to Breathe. I'm David Person, the co-host of this podcast that is presented by the Breath of Life television ministry. And of course, our host for Breathe is Speaker Director, Pastor Debleaire Snell. He's also the senior pastor of the Oakwood University Church and our media guru for Breathe, sitting here in the studio with us, making sure that all the audio is right and the video is right, is Pastor Kirk Nugent, the media pastor of the Oakwood University Church. Well, on last week's episode of Breathe, we had with us Jonathan Gilbert. He's a behavioral specialist. And Jonathan is back for part 2 of our conversation. It's a challenging one, but an important one. And if you missed last week's episode, I would urge you to listen to that first before you join us right now for part 2.
I remember reading this book, and it talked about how essentially the major motif of it is that everybody's insecure. That was it. Like, everybody's insecure. That everybody has this inner critic. Some of it is drawn from the outside world, but there's a huge portion of it that's generated internally through comparison, contrast, imaginations, various illusions, that no matter how productive you are, man, there's that part of you that always feels like you're falling short or coming up in a way that's less than where you should actually be.
Yeah. Pastor, I relate to this part of the conversation. I was far older than Jonathan before I actually began to forgive myself and be gentle with myself, accept my own humanity. I think, and I'm going to say some things that helped me were Christian writer Philip Yancey. One of his books, What's So Amazing About Grace?
About grace.
Yeah, changed my life. It just helped me to really, really, truly understand that God loved me no matter what shape I was in. And once I understood that and really embraced it, then I began to see emotional transformation and healing and also spiritual growth. What I wonder, Jonathan, is what do we say, as you said, the three of us are parents, me and Pastor Nugent, Pastor Snell. What do we say to the child in which we sense there may be some emotional challenges, some, I guess I'll say some very self-critical, harshly self-critical kinds of internal dialogues going on? What do we say to that child? How do we help that child?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to go on a little tangent. Is that okay?
Yeah, man. Do you think? Do you think?
Because I'm not a parent. So I have to talk about this from a different perspective.
But that's good.
One of the things that makes a good therapist is a therapist who can dive into himself, him or herself. I can't help my patients if I'm not willing to do the legwork first. And so, and this goes for anybody listening. If you have a child or anybody, for that matter. But for this example, if you have a child that you notice, like you said, those comparison, those, feeling like they're inadequate, ask yourself, what is it in me? What did I need to hear? What did I need to experience? What did I need back then that I desperately needed to hear? What was it back then I desperately needed to hear? It might just be, hey, you are enough. You are good enough. You are good enough just as you are. I love you just as you are. I know you guys say, you're ahead of the curve. Honestly, I think it's because the Lord revealed this to me early. I don't think this is me at all. I got to give him the credit. Because the immediate place that I went to was the story of the prodigal son. You know, and at the end of the story, you know, the father runs up to him and he embraces him. And that's really, you know, I think that's what we need to do with our kids more. I find that I talk to so many adults, like you guys said, people who are, you know, in their 40s, 50s, 60s. I have, my oldest patient is in, God, I think 76, 77.
Wow.
Oh, no, I see the lifespan. I see the lifespan. And even he has this problem. You know, just wasn't embraced. So if you have this child, ask yourself, okay, what did I need to hear? And then, yes.
Hey, Jonathan, can I ask a question that may be a little too loaded, but I'm going to see if you can take a stab at it.
Go for it.
So one of the things I encounter at times, there's a tension I think sometimes we have. So Paul talks about how we have to put those things which are in the past behind and reach forward to those things that are before. How would you have a person of faith manage the tension of perhaps needing to revisit some childhood traumas with the intent of moving forward? And how would they know if they're visiting the past in a way destructive, but then how can they visit the past, acknowledge some things in a way that propels them forward? And I don't know if that question makes sense, but do you kind of get the gist of the tension that some people wrestle with? Like, man, the spiritual thing is just to shut off the past, move forward. But then there are probably some times that we need to revisit it. Can you kind of maybe help the believer manage that tension a little bit?
The question makes perfect sense. Let me just cut to the chase. Okay. It is a hard question. It is a hard question. I won't lie to you. Because there is that want to just let the past be in the past. What good is it to revisit? It's in the past. It's done.
Right.
It's done.
I've heard that.
Yes.
I've heard that 1,000 times, probably more. What I find, though, it's not so much that we're revisiting the past, but rather that we're completing it.
That's good.
That's what I find. Sometimes we don't.
It's undone.
It's
That's
undone. It's just not completed. I learned that from my mother, actually. My mom's also in this field. I can't take credit for this one either. I learned that from her. You know, sometimes we have to go back there and complete our past.
Yeah.
You know, complete it and let the wound scab over.
Yeah.
We walk around we walk around with so many, we just carry so many wounds.
Open.
So is completing the past, does that mean confronting it, reconciling it? What does that actually mean?
I like to say reconciliation. You know, you reconcile the past, because a lot of the time we're hurt. You know, you don't get through this life without getting hurt. You know, and so I find that going back there, forgiving those who harmed us. You know, forgiving those who harmed us, not just with what they did, but even with their absence. You know, if they didn't do something to us, you know, when they were there, but even with their absence, just forgiving the parent who wasn't there, forgiving the parent who walked out.
Wow.
You know, forgiving the friend who betrayed us, the parent who betrayed us, the teacher who didn't believe in us. You know, that's what I find in putting it to rest for good.
Pastor Snell, we talk a lot these days about what some people call church hurt. Other people call, I think actually you have coined the phrase church trauma, which has a lot of precision to it. To what extent do you think church culture or even maybe church beliefs and doctrines contribute to emotional trauma or hurt in individuals?
I think there are a number of errant beliefs that contribute to it. So, like, for instance, even something like when 1 Corinthians 6, Paul talks about not taking matters of offense before civil authorities. I get the principle behind it. But I think the wrong application of the principle says, okay, man, person inflicts serious, real trauma on person. And in the name of preserving the reputation of the church, you don't go to the needed civil authorities when a person has molested or sexually harmed or abused an individual. I think there is a living principle that says, okay, for small matters of offense that just require judgment, no, we shouldn't go to civil authorities for that. But I think the wrong application of that principle creates a cover up and a hiding, and we kind of smother it with the gospel and we try to make it smell good. And so I just think that there are some things that we've misapplied over the years that have created some generational hurt that has harmed people's view of God and has them alienated from the body of Christ.
So in light of that, what should the church be doing today to try to correct that?
Well, I think it's two things. I think we need to so what people say is that truth is progressive, when I think it's the revelation of truth that is progressive. So that we have to continue to look at the Word of God and see how we've applied certain things and making sure that, we're looking at it in the context it was intended, as opposed to a 50-year-old interpretation. And I just think at the end of the day, there's just got to be a radical standing up. And what I mean when I say that is that we've got to call out unrighteousness vehemently, no matter where it's found. So whether it is that influential elder in his family, whether it is the long time serving deacon, whether it is fellow clergy, I just think that we've got to call sin by its right name wherever it is found. Because I think that we've got to shift the culture and the climate so that, like even in this house where I am right now, if you say turn off the air conditioning and there's no circulation of air, all manner of mold and mildew is just going to grow simply because the climate is conducive to that. And I think that when we change the temperature and the climate, it dictates what things can grow and it dictates what things cannot grow. And I think because there's been too tepid of a climate, there are certain bacterial, emotional forces that have been able to thrive and grow simply because of the culture that has been allowed to exist.
That's a great analogy. Any final thoughts, Pastor Snell? Any final thoughts?
Man, I think this is really rich, and I think we've got to figure out a way to revisit, because I think Jonathan's got a lot to unpack with us. And so I think we've shared with him before we want him to be a constant guest, and I think we need young men like him, because I think that there is a generational element that people need, especially young people. They need to see his face, but they also need to hear what he has to say.
Absolutely.
I think he just the way he presents, the way he thinks, will create a safety around some of these conversations that will draw in millennials, Gen Xers, and maybe Gen Zers a little bit as well. And so I just think we've got to create a diet of conversation as opposed to having a lot of space between these kind of dialogues.
Great. So, Jonathan, that means get your calendar out, brother. We're going to have you back. Pastor Nugent, any final thoughts?
No, emotional healing. It's a big topic, broad topic, and it affects everyone. And I think that the fact that it affects everyone is the part that is kind of a misnomer, because it isn't like physical healing where a bone is sticking out or something is physically wrong, and we can walk around and portray that we are fine. We don't seek assistance and we don't seek help the way that we would if it was a physical ailment. And so I love what Pastor Snell said. We've got to normalize the conversations around physical healing. Even our last guest, and you've said it, no one has necessarily use the term healed past tense. Everyone has used the term healing, meaning it is something that is actively happening as we continue to live. So it is an experience that we are having right now. I am in the process of healing. And so it's not like, okay, this one, I've healed from it and I'm gone. No. You're still learning to love yourself, learning, right? Not learned. It's something that's happening for you right now. And that's okay. That space is okay. So that's the only piece I wanted to add in there. I think this has been a phenomenal conversation.
It's a progressive, ongoing process.
Absolutely.
Jonathan, any final thoughts?
Just that I'm thankful to be back. I mean, I really appreciate this. I'm glad this is being recorded because y'all, the stuff that you guys have said has been phenomenal. I've got to go back and read and listen to this again. This is, it's Pastor Snell, your questions, David, your questions. I mean, shoot. I'm glad this is being recorded.
Excellent.
Kirk, that last thing you said, brother, you have no idea how true that is, man.
Wow.
You have no idea. That was powerful.
Thank you. God be praised, man. God be praised.
Jonathan, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I'm David Person, co-host of Breathe on behalf of Pastor Debleaire Snell, the host, and also our media guru, Dr. Kirk Nugent, who makes sure that we are on point with the audio and the video, y'all.
Come on.
I'm David Person. God bless you. Don't forget, no matter how challenging life may be, you can always stop, pray, and breathe.
Breathe is produced by David Person for Breath of Life. Christian Lawson and Damian Malone provide production assistance. The opening theme was produced by David Person and James Bowman. James Bowman and Kelvin Wooten produced the closing theme. Special thanks to our broadcast partner, WJOU-FM Oakwood University Radio. Episodes of Breathe can be found on your favorite podcasting platforms. Please like them and share. Until next time, when life gets difficult, don't forget to breathe.